So good morning, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Talk. I'm Kylie Peck, President and CEO of the Greater Watertown North Country Chamber of Commerce. And I thank you all for joining us today. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Jefferson County Economic Development and the Hilton Garden Inn, Watertown Thousand Islands, and a special thank you to Advocate Drum for partnering with us today to bring you this coffee talk session on transitioning soldiers and military spouses. We're proud to have Fort Drum as part of our community, and we're proud to have the talents that both our soldiers and their spouses bring to us, and we want to do what we can to keep them here. We have so many job openings across the North Country looking for skilled employees, and we'll hear from our speakers today about how we can match up retiring and transitioning soldiers and their spouses to these positions that are available and keep their talents in the North Country. Because if they leave the North Country, they take those skills with them. And we're always looking for those individuals to stay here and to bring a diverse community, a more vibrant community, and just grow across the North Country. So this morning, we will be hearing from Cheryl Mayforth, Executive Director of the Workplace, Craig McNamara, Transition Services Manager at the Fort Drum Transition and Employment Assistance Program, and Scarlett Sharkey, Community Outreach Coordinator for the Hiring Our Heroes Military Spouses Professionals Network. So without further ado, I will let you hear from the experts on this topic, and we will start out with Cheryl as I share my screen. Good morning, Cheryl.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Glad to be here. And as most of you, some of you know that I am a military spouse. My husband is retired military, and we chose to locate here after retirement, and we have family in the area, so we were glad to come here. My husband can't be too far from water, so you can tell he is retired Navy, but so we went through. So the things that we're talking about today, not only have I experienced, but is my husband transitioned from the military to civilian world, that we certainly here at the workplace understand that. We have a veterans program here. We work very closely with Fort Drum. We have somebody posted out there during normal times, and hopefully soon we will return to normal times. But we want to talk about what's going on in Jefferson County, and you can go to the next one. Is just this came out on Tuesday, but if you will look, this is just before disaster hit last year. Last year we had a unemployment rate of 7.3. Today, January 2021, 7.1. Now, when it gets to be like this, I'm like, you know what, this is kind of just level. And so, it's typically, if everybody has followed these numbers like I do every single day, is that this is normally always a high period for us. And that's because of seasonal unemployment. And this year we have some other factors. One is our workforce is decreasing. It's decreasing simply because baby boomers are retiring. Baby boomers are headed south. So this is something that we have been yelling about for over a decade. The baby boomers are retiring. The baby boomers are retiring. And so we're seeing a decrease. The workforce is defined as those 16 and up. So that's a whole population. But a number we're missing is called the labor participation rate. And that is a big concern because number one, we have hybrid K through 12 programs, and individuals have had to leave the workforce in order to care for children. We also are a child care desert. We were a child care desert before the pandemic, and we continue, it actually has gotten worse, because daycare centers have had to decrease the number of children they can serve. Some of them have been just can't deal with taking care of kids and then homeschooling their own kids. So I will tell you, on a national basis, the labor participation rate is hovering in that 40%. And again, when it gets to the female population, it's hitting the female population way harder. But as I always say, everything is not about us. And so when we look at other areas, unemployment is certainly skyrocketed. When we look at what's happened in New York City is at 14%. The Bronx are even higher. And so we have certain pockets, and mostly it's downstate, that's getting hit extremely hard with unemployment. I'm pausing. Oh, there we go. Okay, one of the things that we have seen in the pandemic is the bad news. We saw a loss of 1,600 jobs in Jefferson County, and you know that we have lost some. Retail has taken a beating. Brick and mortar stores are closing. We're losing another one in a few days. And so we've seen this. We've lost restaurants. We have restaurants operating at 50%. Obviously, that's going to increase real soon, but you don't need all your employees. We've been hit hard, especially in our hospitality and tourism area. And so the bad news is we've lost jobs. As you know, the movie theater hasn't opened. And so all of those jobs are lost. Now, we do have a potential for some of these to come back. And of course, we're not sure what's going to happen there. Our arts and entertainment are just starting to come back. There's a lot of sectors that are still hovering. But here's the good news. In the last 30 days, this office has taken in 800 job openings, and 500 of those have come in the last 2 weeks. So we do know there are jobs out there, plenty of jobs and then if we should all of a sudden see certain sectors coming back to life, this is going to increase. Now, where we basically post our jobs is anything coming in here goes to the New York State Job Bank. And the reason it goes there is that anybody can access that from anywhere in the country. And as a military spouse, when I was fortunate to work for one agency for 14 years in 4 different locations, but you would go there and say, what's available in the Jefferson County or even Lewis County area. And so you can access that at any time, anywhere, and see these job postings. So as you can see, the good news is we have a lot of positions that we are unable.
You want to hear this? I can put it on Bluetooth if you want to hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You can go to the next one here. Now, as Yogi Berra would say, it's deja vu all over again. And prior to the pandemic, we were experiencing a labor shortage. And as you know, we're back at that. We have returned to where we were basically prior to the pandemic. A lot of job leads going unfilled. And so this is why to be able to access other labor pools is important to our community. And so where does one find good help these days? And so I'm going to turn it over to Craig, and he's going to take it from here.
Let me first thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to speak to you this morning. You may notice that our name has changed. We are the Transition and Employment Assistance Program, or TAP. And that reflects that we kind of wear 2 hats now. We have a Transition Assistance Program, which was formerly called SFL-TAP, and we have an Employee Readiness Program. And when we put those together, we get the Transition and Employment Assistance. Our Employment Readiness Program primarily works with our transitioning soldiers and spouse population, and our Transition Assistance Program works with all of our transitioning soldiers. So any soldier that's getting out of the Army, be that retirement, through a disability or through a normal discharge, those are the soldiers that we work with predominantly. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we'll go over the numbers here in a little bit, but initially, you know, we perform the role of assisting soldiers in making career decisions. One of the first decisions they're going to make is whether or not they're going to remain in the Army. So what we do is we give them an honest look through our DOL partners of what the employment opportunities and career opportunities exist inside the civilian world. And from that, we see, and I think I have a slide coming up later, that 18% will re-enlist. So that's the first decision we help them with. And then there's follow-on decisions. Do I want to enter the workforce? Do I want to enter, you know, an educational pipeline? Or do I want to go into entrepreneurship or attend some sort of vocational training? So we have these career tracks that will put soldiers in and assist them in gaining, you know, education and opportunities within those career tracks. Both of our programs will assist with resumes and interviewing if we have spouses or transitioning soldiers that need assistance tweaking their resume. I just did one yesterday. All of us are trained in how to assist our populations in doing that. And then interviewing techniques. We're actually getting a simulator, for lack of a better word, that's going to be a virtual reality headset kind of thing that assists soldiers and family members with practicing it for interviews and things like that. So we really want to prepare our soldiers and our family members to make these transitions and be part of these opportunities in a very capable way. Our model is a 18 to 12 month model. If you're retiring, you get a 24-month window in which you can utilize our services. We also extend our services beyond the transition date. So for soldiers who might need a little bit of assistance 3 to 6 months after they transition or retire, our services are available to them. We are a very deep bench. We have a lot of professionals. Cheryl spoke briefly about our New York State DOL partners. We have federal DOL partners, and I have a slide that's kind of show that to you here in a little bit. So we have a wide. The question that we hear a lot is, how many soldiers do you have with this skill set? How many soldiers do you have with that skill set? And what I try and tell people is, most of our soldiers are incredibly trainable. So we might not have someone with an advanced manufacturing experience, right? Because that's not what the military does. But we certainly have people who have adaptive skill sets that can work in those environments. And what I tell most employers is, our soldiers are used to training. Every time they need to pick up a new skill set, they're provided the opportunity to train on that skill set, and they master it within a short period of time. And there's a follow-on evaluation to kind of lock that training in. So while we have pretty much anything you might be looking for, if we don't, I promise you, you have a population of soldiers here that are ready to be trained and are very adept at training. And the most important thing, I think, having worked on several sides of the fence here, being military, then worked in the private sector, and then coming back on the installation, is that most soldiers have a great sense of teamwork, and they understand the need to have an appropriate level of urgency, which I think many of you would agree are two skills that are paramount to good employment. So you get that with our veterans and our transitioning soldiers. Okay, our overall goal: assist, inspire, and support. I'm not going to read that to you, but we accomplish that by educating, equipping, and connecting. So we educate them, and we talk briefly about how we go down, what the employment opportunities are. Which of these areas do you want to track into? If you go into the employment track, how are we going to connect you with those opportunities? So we do things like career fairs, and I'll talk at that at the end. Career fairs and other opportunities, job boards. We have industry days and things like that. So we really work at trying to make sure that our soldiers understand that there are connections to them, both here in the North Country and beyond. Next slide, please. Okay, so we transition in a 12-month period about approximately 3,000 soldiers. So when you extend that to the 18-month window, we're around 4,000 soldiers that are participating in our program at any given time. We also support the 6,000 plus or minus spouses that are on the installation as well. And in that population is our IDES populations, which stands for the Integrated Disability Evaluation System. And what that means is those are soldiers that are being medically evaluated for their ability to continue to serve. And I think that when people hear that outside of the military, they think, oh, well, they may not be able to do the tasks that we'll need them to do. These are very specific boards. They look at your ability to perform as a soldier in a combat environment. So it doesn't really take away from their ability to do normal day-to-day, the expectations of the workforce. And like I said, we have a population of about 450 soldiers at any time that are in that process. Now, of those 450 soldiers, some will come out of that process and continue to serve, and others will be transitioned to the civilian community. And then we have 70 officers who have submitted their resignations, their qualified resignations. And those are, officers with bachelor's degrees or advanced degrees. And many of our soldiers have bachelor's degrees and advanced degrees as well. These are interesting numbers here that we've sort of parsed out over the last year. What I like to say is we have 1/3 of each population. We have 1/3 of our soldiers that really want to stay in the North Country. They want, the benefits of being in the North Country, being stationed at Fort Drum, appeal to them, and they'd like to make the transition locally. We have another 1/3 that are like, I'm going to go where the opportunities bring me. So if you're looking at that, that's 2/3 of our soldiers that are transitioning from Fort Drum that will at least, stay in the local area, and 1/3 of that are really wanting to stay here. And then we have another 1/3 that, I joined from Arkansas. I love Arkansas. I'm going back to Arkansas. And for those soldiers, we keep, a robust set of employers and contacts outside of, regional and national employers. So, but the moral of the story is 2/3 of our soldiers who are transitioning off this installation are interested in staying in the North Country. So those are great opportunities for us. Sorry about that. My slide over here is not one to work. Okay. So I talked to you about our deep bench of talent here. We have our TAP center. We have individual counselors. So every soldier who's getting out has an individual counselor. Now those counselors carry a caseload of, a large caseload, but every one of those soldiers has that counselor. They have them at their beck and call, and that counselor will assist them with the process. And then the broader team is our DOL partners, our VA partners, our VA benefit advisors, our labor partners in the state. They run curriculum for us that teaches our soldiers how to best position themselves for the opportunities they want to achieve. I'm going to talk in the end a little bit more about the career skills program. It's really something locally that I think we can do a lot to assist soldiers in making these transitions through you folks, through our local employers. Our district commander, our battalion and brigade commanders, really, when our soldiers want to do these internship opportunities, really want them to stay local. Obviously, COVID made it so that being local was way better. But even going forward, it's better if the soldiers stay closer to the installation. It causes less confusion. It's easier. And if they need them for other tasks, not associated with work, but if they've got to come in and sign a form for their transition or something like that, they're close enough to be able to do that as well. We have a lot of education partners. I noticed that there's some education institutes of higher learning on. We have a lot of educational partners that work with us. And we try and, for our soldiers that do want to go into education, we try and, provide them the information they need to make that successful transition. All right. And we also have entrepreneurship classes through the Small Business Development Center. So those are all opportunities that our soldiers will look at. Oh, next slide. Yeah. All right. So I briefly talked about the 18 and 12-month program window. A soldier at 18 months can sign up for our program. And what you're seeing in there, that's the curriculum that we teach. So they'll have an individualized counseling. They'll do a self-assessment. Where am I at? What do I want to do? How ready do I feel to make this transition? And then that'll go into pre-separation counseling, which kind of talks about, are your goals realistic? Are you tracking the right things? I want to be an MMA fighter. Well, I mean, that sounds great, but is there an opportunity? Are there real opportunities for that? Or do you need to make that something you put on a longer term goal and meet some interim goals for that, or things like that? My transition really just talks about the social and economic aspects of making a transition. And then we look at their career skill in the military and we assist them in making those connections to what those career skills translate to in the civilian world. So my hope is that as you receive resumes from our soldiers, you don't have to go watch 14 Army movies to try and figure out what those acronyms and things mean. That they've done the work to sort of weed out those military phrases and terminologies to turn those into better civilian resumes. And if you see that, by all means, let us know that you're still seeing that, because that's a real goal for us, because it's a missed opportunity. When a soldier talks about their experience and they use military terms that you don't understand, then they're missing the opportunity to communicate their skill set to you, and that's important to us. Everything else in that 12-month process, and you'll see that on the lower right-hand corner in the white box where it says Career Skill Program eligibility, everything else in that box, we try and do it over a timed period where a soldier can attend some training and get some education, and then have the opportunity to reflect on that newly acquired knowledge and come back to us with good questions and work different aspects of their resume, different aspects of their goal, where they have an individualized transition plan. So, so soldiers, when they arrive in front of you for an interview type setting, they really should have a firm understanding of what skills they possess, how those skills relate to the jobs that you have for them, and then how that fits into their overall community goals and what they want to do. What I tell soldiers is, you've made a successful transition when you found a new community to serve. And that looks like I coach, youth sports. I'm interested in my kids' school and the governance of my kids' school. So I might run for the school board. You found a new way to feel connected to a community like you did while you were in the Army, because what we hear a lot from soldiers is this loss of identity. And what I tell them is, don't lose your identity, transform your identity. Turn that into passion and activities that support your communities. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I promised it twice, so I'll give it now. Here's our career skills programs. These are great opportunities for our soldiers to go out and work with you. For that, and it moves around, but it's a 120-day period, essentially, inside their last 6 months of service. So you can see that this is a big commitment on the Army's behalf. The commander has to release the soldier to participate in this, so it requires command approval. But we're finding that most of our commanders see the benefits of this, right? Our soldiers serve alongside us. We want to see them do well when they transition. And if this is what's going to help them make that transition, keep them and their families, engaged in their communities, then this is what we want to do. So to accomplish that, we allow them to work with a local employer for 120 days in that last 6 months as an internship. Their place of duty essentially becomes your employment. So what that looks like is it gives our soldiers the opportunity to look at the civilian world, see what the requirements are in the civilian world, really kind of dig into what this transition is going to look like. And it gives you, the employer, the opportunity to, check the suitability of a soldier, make sure it's a good fit for them, make sure that their skill set is translating well. And then also it gives you an opportunity to train a prospective employer or employee on the Army's money. So every one of these soldiers will be paid their salary by the Army. They cannot receive any type of pay through their employer. So the Army picks up all of that. And in the end, what we hope and what we've seen is that our soldiers find a new place to work. They get great employment opportunities. They feel vetted to a company before they ever sign the line and say, hey, I want to be part of it. And what we find from our employers is they get an opportunity to meet, understand, work with, and train their prospective employees, which is always a great thing. Now, not every soldier stays with the company they did the internship with. That's not always how that goes, but we find most do, especially when there's a job offer at the end of an internship. Most will entertain that offer and take it. So again, that 2/3 of our soldiers, the 1/3 that are really committed to trying to find something local, the other third that's like, I'm going to go where the opportunities are. There it is. There's the opportunity. It's here. So if you aren't participating in our career skill program and it sounds like something you want to look at, please reach out to either Lorelei or Emily or myself, and we'll get you connected. There is a little process there where you go through and you get vetted by the Army. The Army says, yep, this is a great place for our soldiers to work. And that's really just looking at the fitment, the safety aspects, things like that. So I've not seen a company not be vetted yet. So it's not a big deal. It's just the Army has a fiduciary responsibility to our soldiers to make sure that we don't put them in harm's way. And there are some things that we just wouldn't be able to participate in. But if you have questions about that, please reach out to us and ask us, and we'd be happy to answer your questions. All right, I think that's it for me. What I did want to talk about briefly is on 28 April, we're going to have a drive-in, not a drive-through, but a drive-up sort of career fair in our parking lot here at Clark Hall. If you're interested in that, please let me know. I may just pull the list from here and reach out to you and see if you're interested in that. We would love to have local employers there to work with our spouses. This one's really aimed towards our spouses and our transitioning soldiers. So you're going to see, both our spouses and our transitioning soldiers at this one. So, and Mr. Maurice Mitchell is our point of contact here. But if you reach out to me, I will get you in touch with Mitch, and Mitch is doing the planning for that, and we'll get it taken care of.
Good morning. My name is Scarlett Sharkey, and I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Fort Drum Military Spouses Professional Network. And I want to say, really, basically, we're just a pipeline to success between employer and employees. Next slide. We'll jump right in. So I really felt before we got started that I needed to give a little bit of background on where we were, how we came to be, that sort of thing. So in 2011, the private nonprofit arm of the Chamber of Commerce launched a nationwide effort to connect veterans and military spouses with meaningful employment opportunities. So out of this is where Hiring Our Heroes was born. It is a workforce development program with a single mission of getting veterans and spouses and businesses and communities working together and thriving. Our whole goal with the Fort Drum chapter of Military Spouses Professional Network, our HOH MSPN, is making sure that military spouses are able to connect with employers and no matter where they are. So that's our biggest goals on that. So getting into our pipeline. So we got started last April of 2020 for the Fort Drum chapter here of HOH MSPN. And in that length of time, we have gone from 0 to over 1,700 active participants, people that are constantly tuned in with us. Last fall, we decided to start setting some very specific goals, and we wanted to see 100 spouses get hired. So we set that goal at the beginning of September and had over 140 before the year had been finished. And when you think about that in terms of how it affects our community here, it's putting 4.6 million back into the community. So really, this MSPSN pipeline, it's a pipeline to you, a pipeline to us, a pipeline to the spouses. How can it help you? What does it mean to you? It's going to support your business, both via with employees and supporting your business. It's a link to employees, finding that talent pool of spouses out there. Spouses want to work, right? And the big thing to this too, it's a link to the military community. All right. So pulling all of this back together, when you start thinking about these things, how MSPN is networking to you is, well, right now virtually, because that's how we're sort of stuck. Next slide, please. So when you connect with MSPN, you're actually connecting with thousands of spouses. So even if you don't hire, we want to see your business grow, right? We want to hear from you. We do a monthly professional development and monthly highlights of things. We want to make sure that the military community, our spouses, and your business, that our spouses are aware of your business and that they're knowledgeable about you. All right. It's absolutely an interactive network, and our social media presence, it makes advertising for jobs effortless and at no cost to you. Our military spouses. So when you think about spouses, really, they have a whole lot of high mobility. So military spouses offer, next slide. We have a lot of high mobility, right? A military spouse in the terms over 20 years can move at least 8 times, but that makes them special. And because of this, they're going to become resilient. They're quick to adapt to new surroundings, and they bring to the table a lot of experience. It's expanded, it's rich, it's varied, and their work experience, while it may not always be in a paid position, it's going to be filled with volunteer positions. They're never, ever stopping, right? Even these voluntary positions can be, although non-paid, can often be with large organizations with lots of moving pieces. Next slide. So our pipeline, how do I want you guys to think about this? Connecting with MSPN is your chance to share your job opportunities with us via email, via LinkedIn. Please connect with us on LinkedIn. That's absolutely one of the easiest ways. We want you to join us on Zoom and our Facebook Live. We'd love to highlight your business, discuss our opportunities, any openings that you have coming up. And even if you're not hiring, if you're interested in taking on those volunteer or intern opportunities as well, it's all in working towards the common goal of getting our spouses to gain those skills. We would be happy to help you, thrilled to help you, and we really want to hear from you. So please reach out to us. You can find us at the Fort Drum Hiring Our Heroes organization.org, and then join us on our LinkedIn page, which would be the Fort Drum Hiring Our Heroes Military Spouse Program. Okay, short and sweet.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Scarlett. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put that in the chat and I will get things started because I was jotting down a few things as our speakers were going through. And I want to go back to Cheryl. I had a quick question. You mentioned that there were 800 positions available that you guys have received at the workplace. Are those all located in Jefferson County, or are they St. Lawrence and Lewis County as well, Tri-County or beyond that? Just curious to know what that looks like.
Our arm is Jefferson-Lewis, and of course Jefferson County job leads are put in here at this office, Lewis up in Lowville, but some of our employers enter their own, such as Samaritan Medical Center will enter their own, but they're just coming in every single day. For those at Fort Drum, you can access St. Lawrence County as well, because if you go on to the New York Job Bank, you can put in a zip code, it'll give you 50-mile radius. So, you know, you're going to be able to pull up job leads from all over.
That's really great. And really important for our employers that are on the call today to make sure you're submitting your job openings at, through the workplace and through, the partner organizations in Lewis and St. Lawrence counties as well. That way we can make sure we're covering all of the bases.
One more thing, Kylie, is that when we do get a job order in, is besides going out on the job bank, it goes to 21 different individuals through partner agencies, so that it goes out to Fort Drum immediately. It goes out to other agencies in our area as well, because obviously we're trying to do what we can to fill these job leads that are just coming in at a rapid fire.
Absolutely. That's great. Yeah, we want to get those filled. Keep people here locally for sure.
Right.
Craig, if an employer receives a resume, could it or would it be appropriate to connect with you if they have any questions? perhaps if it wasn't necessarily put into, civilian jargon, if it's still in military, would it military speak, if you will, would it make sense to contact you?
So in the form of non-attributed feedback, yes. So like if you're getting a resume and without attributing it to an individual, tell us that, hey, we're seeing resumes that are not well adapted to the civilian world. They're very militarized. So I don't think that what the individual is trying to relate is coming across in a way I completely understand. Then yes, absolutely, I'm interested in that. I don't think it would be appropriate to say, hey, John Smith just sent me an email or just sent me a resume. Would you get with John and fix this resume? I would encourage you that if you get a military resume from a soldier and it just doesn't work that well, you now know what our services do and what we can provide. So I would encourage you to send that soldier right back up to us and have us work that email, have us work that resume. But if you're seeing generalities, I'm absolutely interested in that. We stand in front of every class, and in every class I tell them, hey, listen, you guys have got to find a way to communicate your skill set adequately to a civilian employer. The fact that you were, the greatest soldier in the world, and you use all these military terms to tell people how to quantify that greatness, it gets lost. So we need to find a way to really translate that to the skills and attributes for each position you're applying to. So if you're not seeing that, then in a broader context, then yes, absolutely, please reach out to me directly and say, hey, we're seeing a slew of resumes that we don't think meet what you now know is my standard. And I will go back in and re-energize our folks and say, hey, listen, we're just not meeting the mark on this. So.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you for that. And again, if anyone has questions, please feel free to put those in the chat and we'll get those answered as best we can. So Craig, you mentioned, you know, when you're working with the groups that are transitioning out of the military, you want them to kind of reinvent themselves or re-find their passion in the civilian community. Is there a way for nonprofits to connect with these soldiers to get them re-energized and maybe reach out to them to say, hey, we need volunteers or we need board members? And Scarlett, this is probably a great question for you as well for the military spouses. Is there a way to connect with these individuals as nonprofits as well?
Yeah, so as strange as this might sound, veterans recognize veterans from a mile away. So they are always in small groups. They always kind of recognize each other, and they always sort of migrate towards one another. So yes, I think inside of individual companies, having people who have served previously who work now for the company, and then having them go out and do community outreach and community-based programs and nonprofits. That is always a very powerful thing, and it cuts twice. We do it in the military because it represents the military well. Our soldiers out in the community, working with our community partners and members, it represents the military well. There's no shortage of organizations in the civilian community that support veterans. You've got peer-to-peer in Watertown, the Vet Center, the VFW, the American Legion. I mean, all of those are fine places, but I find veterans in very small groups who work in the same institutions. I worked at Jefferson. Before I came over here, we had 16 veterans who worked at Jefferson. I knew every one of them. I'd had discussions with each of them. And at times we would say, hey, this sounds like something we really want to try to be a part of. Let's get out there and try and energize the community and do that. So I think in those smaller levels, those local levels, it really is very effective. So I would encourage you that if you have veterans working inside of your employment now, 1, 2, 3, or 4, encourage them to go out and join those local organizations and be part of that. It's another way, it's another sense of service that brought us into the military and sustains us when we leave.
So just to follow up on that, we would love to hear from all those nonprofits because, well, spouses are 3 times more likely to volunteer than the regular public is. And spouses also recognize the fact that if I volunteer for these organizations, I'm still building skills. I am still building a network. And we would love to feature those nonprofits on our MSPN page. So yes, please have them contact us.
And one of the things we tell both of our soldiers and our spouses that are looking for employment is recency of experience is important. So if they can get out there and find a volunteer opportunity and make that the most recent thing on their resume, it shows that they're engaged with their community and that they're still developing skills, and the recency of that development is not too far back. So it's always a good thing.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's a good point. I know sometimes you look at a resume and there may be some gaps, especially if they're, transitioning across the country, I think that's a great way to take a look at that. Cheryl, maybe you can talk about the ability to retain military spouse employees, even if they transfer out of the area through remote working where applicable.
That has been the key word, I think, phrase, working remotely in 2020. And that is really a plus. And we know that there are many employers, not a lot in our area, but several, where they have transitioned to remote work locations, and we're seeing a lot of that. And so even my own experience of moving around is that many times, like I said, I worked for the same agency for 14 years in 4 different locations. So there is that ability to transfer. And I see a note from Dave that so I'll throw this question over to Scarlett.
Okay, so we did some research on this, and there's 2 ways to think about military spouses. They're going to be great. They could be here for 3 years or a whole lot longer. I can tell you I was a military spouse, and that was 10 years ago. I'm still here. or you can think of them as absolutely ready and able to take on remote work and to continue going with your company. And I know that COVID has really sort of reinvented. Let me give you an excellent example of how inventive and creative and resilient military spouses are. My girlfriend worked for a large agency and she worked in person. And this is when they were stationed at Fort Belvoir. She did her research on her job and was like, really, I can statistically do 80% of my job remotely. So when she moved to Fort Bragg, she took her job with her. She worked 80% of her time, and because they were close enough army post, she drove back and was back in the office for 20% of her time. And her company was so thrilled to keep her because they definitely didn't want to lose her. And then they moved back to the Belvoir area, and she still continues that same 80-20 because it just worked for them.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more and more instances, looking like that as we move forward. COVID unlocked a whole slew of opportunities for people that we really, especially in the North Country, I think we're always a little bit slower to, tack on to the technology and the trends. I think we really recognized that we have the ability to work remotely and do it well, efficiently and effectively. So I think we're just about to the end of our session. I did want to ask Dave Zembeck if he had anything he'd like to add on behalf of Advocate Drum. Again, they partnered with us in bringing this to our employers' attention, and we'll continue to talk about this as we move forward. Dave?
I just say that, we're continually, us and our other partners trying to remind the business community that you've got this talent pool here. We will look at working, you may recall about a year ago, we worked with Fort Drum, Advocate Drum, worked with Craig's team to do a tour of Fort Drum, to see some of the soldiers working in the workplace and actually see some of those skills. And you go there to the motor pool and realize these guys aren't just auto mechanics, which by itself is pretty high level skill, but you're then realizing some of these guys are really into, the importance of the IT they use to manage, their parts and the work orders. And one of the guys mentioned having going out after the business people on that tour heard his presentation. They were kind of flocking around him when he was done to kind of try to recruit him when he left. Same thing when you go to the medical facility at Guthrie. It's not just people with medical skills there, but and administrative skills, but people that are handling logistics, warehousing, and transportation and ordering and stuff. So there's a lot more applicable skills out there that are available if we just can recognize that and tap into it, and take advantage of those career fairs that they offer out there.
Yeah, David, we're looking at doing that employer tour of the base again, hopefully as early fall, if the permission, if the conditions permit.
Yeah, it's great to see them in action, because then you can really apply the skills back into your workplace and see how they could fit, at your place of business. So we'll wrap up. Cheryl, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
No, just keep in mind, list those job orders with us. We can, we'll disperse those out. So, we've been open, we never closed. There's always been, sometimes there were just a skeleton staff here, but we remain open and we're still doing everything we've always done.
Great. Craig, final thoughts?
Yeah, I just would like to ask everybody first, thank you for attending today and hearing us this morning. That's greatly appreciated. But keep in mind that we're going to do that Drive Up Career Fair on April 28th. And if you're interested in being part of that, please let us know and we'll go from there. So thanks again. I appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks, Craig. Scarlett, any final thoughts?
I wanted to thank everybody, and I would love to hear from people. We would love to highlight your business and your business into our pipeline. So please connect with us.